Hello again. Hi, I'm Brielle. I'm the Work Witch. I am a product strategist working in startups. I'm also a tarot consultant, and I use this channel to help you get real about self-actualization through your career and through your business. I only have so much time per week to film these videos. My kids are in school. I'm a mother of two. And I had 3 or 4 scripts already written for today, but I was making myself a pot of chai downstairs and really thinking about like what's on my heart today and how come the scripts were speaking to me and like what is it that I really want to talk about. And I felt really called to bring this up again. So this is not scripted. This is completely just from the heart. We're going to sit, have some chai and talk about the Maiden Mother Crone and why I think it kind of sucks, why it might not be working for you. And to really be 100% clear and transparent, I think that if it's working for you, if the Maiden Mother Crone thing works for you really, really well, and you find a lot of empowerment with that framework, I don't want to take that away from you. I am very critical of it. I do not care for the Maiden Mother Crone. So if this would bother you like deeply, you don't need to watch this. If, however, you also struggle to connect with the Maiden Mother Crone, if you also feel a little skeptical of it or feel like it's just not quite right for you, but you are looking for some sort of triplicity to connect with, then this video might be for you. My intention with this channel is to really help you with your career, with your business, with the value making that you bring to the world, with putting your creativity into the world. And so I want to talk about the Maiden Mother Crone from that lens. I think there are lots of lenses from which we could break it down and be really critical of it as a framework, but we're going to focus on this one today. I'm probably going to title this video like why I think the Maiden Mother Crone framework is holding you back. And this isn't the first time that I've talked about this online. Years ago, I made a video about like more inclusive alternatives to the Maiden Mother Crone. I will link that below. But I've also spoken a few times on other places like Instagram or Threads or Reddit, where I have discussed with other people my perspective on the Maiden Mother Crone and my critiques of it. If you're unfamiliar with sort of the origins, it was created by a man as a sort of proposal with which to understand ancient mythology and ancient civilizations' concepts of femininity. It is not itself an ancient idea. The idea of a triplicity of woman or of divine feminine is ancient, is old. We have sort of Hecate as a classic example of this, but she's not the only one. We also see it in like Tridevi. There is sort of a natural flow to the idea of beginning, middle, end, of, how a woman starts to become a woman, is able to birth and procreate, and then reaches her crone stage and becomes a wise woman. Like that very much makes sense, I think, from how we sort of intuitively understand a woman's biology. But there are many places that this can break down from, women are much more than baby-making machines, and our creative life permeates through all those phases. Not to mention the whole framework is not exactly inclusive of people who are genderqueer, of the LGBTQ community, of male witches. So I think it's an interesting proposal by Robert Graves, who again made this in the 20th century. And that's why I say if it works for you, if you connect with it, I think that you should continue to use it as long as it serves you. But let's get into why I think it really holds a lot of us back. Women are not following that biological cycle in the same way, okay? Firstly, our maidenhood looks very different from this mythical past where women were on the market and, being courted or whatever. And then, the mother archetype of like, okay, well now she's a mom and now she's raising babies. And I've seen arguments for interpreting that to be like, you might just have a home at that point. You might be sort of in your empress era. And then there's the crone, where your responsibility lies in like passing wisdom on to the next generation. I don't think that the modern woman can relate to this very well. I think that our maidenhood is very different. I think that our mother era is dominated by work, by our most productive years, by thinking about retirement, and our crone years are maybe working as well. A lot of women and men as old people are still having to provide childcare for their grandkids, maybe having to raise them, often unable to retire and working until death. And obviously this framework isn't about just your literal life stages, right? We apply it to sort of how we conceptualize any working If you're into like law of attraction or manifestation, it would probably apply there. It's not just exclusive to people who practice modern witchcraft or neo-pagans. And I think it also puts forth this illusion of it being like the natural way of things because we use this lunar symbolism to complete it, right? But the moon also has a dark phase, right? And that's not captured by Maiden Mother Crone when it is completely new, when it is completely black. In the same way that the darkness of the moon, the new moon, is missing from that triplicity image of, you know, a waxing full and waning moon, I think what also gets missing for everybody, not just women. I'm obviously mostly talking about women here, but I do want to be as inclusive as possible, because I think lots of different people struggle with this in whatever station in life you're at. But I think what really it's trying to communicate that we miss is this idea of being comfortable with form and form dissolving into something else, right? So all shapes and structures and concepts that permeate this universe are interconnected. And I think that the triplicity is meant to sort of illuminate that reality to us, that we are sort of connected to our childhood self, our maidenhood, our growth phase, our procreative phase, and our death phase, and whatever comes after. That these things are a thread that we will, you know, come into form and it will dissolve into something new. That's always a continuous process. However, this framework will limit you if you're not owning it from your own fully individualized consciousness, right? If you're not understanding yourself as a portion of a whole who can choose at any single time when to be procreative, when to be receptive, when to be working or resting. And I think I would really encourage anyone who wants to have sort of a mental framework to approach life with to create their own. And I don't think this process happens overnight. For me, it's taken a number of years to get really comfortable with what I pursue. I'm gonna get a little personal here and share my personal practice, which I don't know, sometimes I feel weird doing that, but because I really don't want to be too influential on other people, because I do think a lot of this is so individualized, right? But for the purpose of demonstration, the process that I've created for myself is something I call the Queen's Path. And it is a triplicity. And it's inspired by three goddesses, Aphrodite, Diana, and Isis. And Aphrodite is sort of my maiden era, but it's also just the element of myself that wants to be fully in my own skin, fully in self-love, a lover to all people, a lover to all beings, part of myself that is kind and soft but knows how to set boundaries, the version of myself that stands up for people. That is, you know, Aphrodite who carries the spear, right? Flowers grow from her footsteps, but she carries a spear. And that is sort of the persona or the presence that I want to have in the world. And I could assign that as sort of the archetype of maidenhood, but I see myself embodying that through all stages of life and at all times. It is one of the faces on which I pull to best meet a responsibility or a situation or a context or tell a story or show up in a way that I think is an improvement upon how I might otherwise show up to something, right? And then Diana, you could think of, I guess, as my full moon moment, but for me, that's not it. She is the archer. Through Diana, I find myself reaching out to friendships and trying to form my community. Diana is the one who inspires me to run wild through the woods with those people, with my people, to be with my people, to not accept less than that. Diana also points her arrows. She is strategic. She is thinking far into the future about what she wants, what her hunt is, but she's also comfortable with the natural cycles, natural seasons, and all things having their time. She is patient, right? You don't know an archer who's not patient, who doesn't wait for the moment to let go. And finally is the queen of all things, Isis. And I don't associate her with Crone energy. I associate her with the idea of legacy, of looking around at this is the house that I might own, the land that I steward, the people that I have birthed who I will hope go on to do good things in the world. And I think this framework, at least for me, it works for my psychology. It works for my goals in this life. Maybe it would work for you, but I will never connect to this idea of Maiden Mother Crone because it doesn't mean anything to me. I'm a mother right now. I'm also a lover. I'm also working really hard. I'm also a volunteer, I'm also a community member, and I do have my crone moments. Like, I have my grandma days. And because I don't conceptualize sort of my life energy and the way that I come into form and dissolve and come into form, because it doesn't match that framework, I can't use that framework for the other things that the occult community wants you to use it for, right? Like, a lot of those sort of like ways that you're meant to understand magic and workings around this framework, they just don't speak to me. It's not how I raise energy, it's not how I express energy, and it's not how I sustain energy. With all of that said, I'm gonna get a little extra woo-woo here. That first part is really about, why I think, you should develop your own frameworks that work for your own psychology and reflect how you show up in the world, right? But I do want to get a little bit extra woo-woo for a moment and consider from a sort of soul perspective why I think it's limiting. I'm of the belief that we come into this world from another place, that our souls are part of something more vast, more interconnected, more cosmic. I think there's lots of different perspectives on why we incarnate into this world at all. I think there's ideas that we're here to be stewards, that we are here to co-create. There's people who think that we are here as punishment. There's all kinds of beliefs out there. I don't really care about those particularly. I try not to concern myself with that anymore because I realized it was really distracting me from the importance of solving the ills, evils, and inequities in this world. That if I'm going to be here for anything, it's going to be creating a better earth, and I want to use my life for that. And for me, a big part of that is building better businesses, giving people good workplaces, putting good products and services and systems into the world that are equitable, that are sustaining, that are co-creative, and ultimately are going to regenerate the ecosystems and materials and resources that we have, so brazenly exploited. Now, when it comes to, taking sort of these wider universal beliefs about the purpose of all this, the meaning of all this, and then looking at something like Maiden, Mother, Crone, maybe you can see why I think it's quite limiting. Maybe you can see why, to me, it is so prescriptive to assume that an earth-based pagan life, or any desire to live for a sacred ecology, to acknowledge the sacredness of this planet, the sacredness of the rivers that come to our fields and provide for entire ecosystems of frogs and mosquitoes and dragonflies and snakes and slugs, that also produces food for us. And our bodies are buried there, and the water continues to nourish, and that water comes from the rains that go around this whole planet and connect all of us, even if we'll never meet one another. Like, these incredible bonds and connections are just so much more profound and wide-reaching than something like a very simplified framework in Maiden, Mother, Crone. I think it's much more interesting to decide to take your station in life and your unique perspective of wherever on this planet you are, and whatever background and experiences you bring to that place in the world, and say, no, I think my self-actualization is going to come through a framework that represents the best version of me and what I can bring forth, right? That's why I created my own, and it took me a long time to figure out what was working for me. But I'm only in my 30s. By the time I'm twice as old as I am now, I might have ditched the whole idea of my queen's path, of the lover, the archer, and the throne. I might be done with that, and something else might take its place to actualize my psychology. I think one of the most important measures that you can take as a spiritual person, whether or not you identify as pagan or a witch or new age or spiritual, like, I don't care what you identify as right now. I care that you do this, okay? That you assess any framework or spiritual concept or anything I've said in this video, or whatever you watch next, or whatever you heard this morning, that you assess it by, does this empower me or disempower me? Does this give me a sense of control, of excitement, of enthusiasm for my life? Or does this make me feel like I have to wait for someone else to help, or wait for someone else to fix it, or wait for someone else to tell me what or how or when? And I think that extends to the gods that we worship, the friends that we keep, the relationships that we maintain. We should feel celebrated and empowered and in control. And I think a big reason for that is that there are lots of people out there with ill intent who are much more sinister, Elon Musk being a good example, who do have that self-belief And it's not being met with equal self-belief in from people who are like more justice-minded, equity-minded, restorative. We need people to own their creativity, to own their ideas, to be brave in bringing them into the world, to acknowledge that we will not always win, right? The world is a battle of wills, right? You can plan as well as you want, there could still be an earthquake, and you can manifest all you want, but someone else might, win out. But the point is that you don't give up your power, that you hold on to it and you keep trying and you keep building it and you don't let anyone take it away from you. And I personally feel like the Maiden Mother Crone puts this very limiting concept of divine feminine, of womanhood, of feminine thought and feminine ethics and feminine energy into something that I will just never relate to. And it's okay if you don't either. It's not, I don't know how the Maiden Mother Crone thing permeated our whole pagan media, but it did. It took off. You are allowed to say, no, I'm going to construct my own, or no, I'm going to use this when I need it as a tool, but not as my end all be all. Okay, that was my chai talk. I'm a little nervous to post this one because every time I talk about this, I get a lot of angry people. So if you're an angry person, please, I don't have the energy to monitor you. If you want to leave a mean comment, that's fine. Just be nice to the other people in my comments. I will come for you if you're rude to other people. You can be rude to me, that's fine. But honestly, again, if it's working for you, if you like Maiden Mother Crone, if you have some sort of nostalgia for it, or you just love the imagery, go for it. I'm not trying to take away something that you find empowering. Quite the opposite. I'm trying to say, do not make it, do not try to fit yourself into Maiden Mother Crone if it doesn't fit. And that was this Monday's pep talk. Have a great week at work. Do good work out there. Be honest. Be true to yourself. Own your power and don't let anyone treat you like shit. Bye.